Welcome back to another Odyssey 40k video. I'm Chris, and in this video we're going to break down what makes Tau good in the current meta, different ways you can build the different detachments, and my kind of general thoughts over the whole army. Hope you enjoy. So Tau Empire is an army that is near and dear to my heart. They were what got me back into 40k back in 2018. Started hobbying up 8th edition Tau list, and yeah, I've fallen in love with them. They're what I mainly played through the entirety of 9th, to pretty much every tournament that I went to, and even in 10th edition I've still played a absolute boatload of them. They are, yeah, near and dear. I love the aesthetic of the army. I love the lore behind everything, the battle suits, even the infantry, everything about them I just really enjoy. But that's not what this is about. This is about how good are they in the current meta. What are the do's, what are the don'ts, and in this video that's what I'm going to break down. I'm going to break down what the good combos you can take in different lists. I have 4 of the detachments. I haven't got Crude Hunting Pack. I couldn't find a list that had done well in recent months, but I do have all the other 4 major detachments. I have Retaliation, Kauyon, Montka, and the new auxiliary detachment. I have a list for each one of those from someone that played really well recently in the last month or two. And we're going to break down our lists and what the kind of combos you can do with each of them. So without further ado, first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the top kind of synergies, the units that you kind of see throughout most of these, if not all of these lists. And the first one we have is the Crew Carnivores. Crew Carnivores with a Scout, with Sticky, they are just really useful to have. Tau don't want to have to camp on objectives, and Tau actually aren't that durable apart from a couple of specific units. So you kind of, and you don't want those units sitting on objectives. You want them to be able to activate and do stuff. So having these Crew Carnivore units can be really important to securing your own primary, being able to deny your opponent's primary. Bespin Stingwings, kind of similar. They can hold your own primary if you want, but their ability to go up at the end of your opponent's turn means your secondary options become way more diverse, being able to deep strike down constantly throughout the game, not just having to, behind enemy lines, turns 4 and 5 or establish locus, can be, well, okay, they're going to be less points or no points, whereas with this unit, it forces your opponent to screen the whole game, which can also open them up to be in places where they don't want to be, which can potentially give you firing angles. Really great unit, super cheap though, 65 points for both of these units, like 65 points each. Absolute steal. So both very good. Stealth battle suits, just the best guide in the game, and that Tau have access to, I guess in the game, because they're the only thing that guides. Yeah, really good, super cheap as well, just really efficient for what they do. Have some decent guns as well, can do actions. Again, all 3 of these are great action tools. This one being good at guiding as well, this one being good at primary, this one being good at secondaries. So it's like really good dynamics there. And then for a bit more of the durability side, we have the Hamhead Gunship. This actually comes up in surprisingly most of the lists. Not all of them with the railgun. Some of them do have the ion cannon instead, which totally makes sense. So it depends on how your list comes together, on what you want your hammerheads to have. Do you have enough anti-tank? Okay, maybe go for the ions. If you have not enough anti-infantry, take the ions on there. It depends on really what you need. So really good unit. And 145 points, you get the free rerolls. They become incredibly consistent, and the alpha strike potential with the railgun and double seeker is really brutal. It can kill most tanks, especially if it gets some support from guided units. And then we have the Ghost Kill. This thing is one of my favorite units in Tau total. Like, just the durability, what it forces your opponent to do a lot of the time. They either have to send units away to deny your primary. This guy is the best way of holding primary. 2 Ghost Kills on an objective really can't. It really puts your opponent in a really awkward position with the amount of OC they have to put on the point, or the amount that they have to put in to kill those units is absolutely crazy. Also, with the lone ops, so they have to get close to you, which then gives you those firing angles to shoot back from relative safety. Just so much good stuff that Ghost Kills can give to your army. So, first we're going to be talking about Kauyon. Obviously, this was the index detachment, so it's the detachment I've played the most by an absolute huge amount. Kauyon is the patient hunter. You want to be playing slow. You don't get a Bennett army rule until turn 3 realistically. You get sustained hits. on everything army-wide on turn 3, and then if you are guided, you get sustained hits 2. This is probably one of the largest damage abilities in the game. Being able to get sustained hits 2 army-wide, well, on everything that matters, is absolutely absurd. It is such a strong ability, followed with some really strong stratagems. You have a +1 to wound stratagem from turn 3 onwards on an objective. Situational, but can be really potent when needed. Especially once you've whittled your opponent down, you might not have as many resources left, so getting that +1 to wound on a couple of your key units that you have left alive can be really pivotal. The combat embarkation stratagem is probably one of the coolest ones, that's slowing down the pace of the game a little bit. So what that is you can, when your opponent declares a charge, if your infantry units, so breaches or pathfinders realistically, are within 3 inches of a transport, they can get sucked back inside, wholly within 3 inches of the transport. So they kind of have to get out and be kind of positioned around it. But it kind of forces the melee matchups, which can be kind of difficult for Tau at times, to really gain an advantage, and also slows it down. It means your unit stays alive for another turn. And now there are ways around it. You can charge with 2 units, kind of wrap the entire Devilfish, and then you can kill it with the first unit, and then pile in with the second, fight, and then kill the units. In melee, breaches and pathfinders die very quickly. So there are ways around it for your opponent, but it's a great utility strat to have, and it also forces your opponent to overcommit. Sending 2 units that can both kill a Devilfish and the unit inside is like not nothing, so you actually kind of get a bit of mileage out of that. But yeah, that's kind of the overview. So let's go into the list. This is the list from LVO that did really, really well. Came like top 15. I believe it was almost, I think it was undefeated, but they couldn't play the Shadow round. So, but yeah, so awesome run. Let's dive into the list. I hope you like these, how the overlay is set up as well. Takes a bit of time, but I think it's a really nice visual to be able to see how you kind of see it in the app. I have cut off the points from the side of it this time, just to kind of fit it all in. Tower can get a surprising amount of units, so you kind of have to, like, I'm trying to cram it in so it's still decent size for you all. So first we have Commander Shadow Sun. Absolute great piece in most armies and most detachments, especially good here. Being able to have that line up to slow down the game, be able to hold some primary, hold your home field if it's kind of more in the open. Really good ability to give reroll 1s every 3 rounds to gain a bit more consistency, especially once Kauyon kicks in. You want as many rerolls as possible, so getting those is really, really important. Then we have only 1 Breacher team, and there is a Devilfish for them to go inside to start the game in, so your Devilfish doesn't explode. Nothing surprising here. 1 unit recruit, again, very good. That early game, hold your home field, stick it, and then be able to move forward, really important. 1 Pathfinder team with a Recon Drone and 3 Ion Rifles. Recon Drone gives them the ability to infiltrate, and then you can scout as well. So really good utility PC. You can kind of block out your opponent's deployment, lock down one part of the board, and then scout back to safety after deployment has been done. 3 units of stealth battlesuits, really good. I've kind of already gone over them. Very efficient, good for what they do. 2 singular piranhas. Now I really like this edition because it kind of focuses on one of the issues that Kauyon has, whereas it doesn't really play turns 1 and 2 very well, because you don't really have an army rule for those 2 turns. Well, you just straight up don't. So you need pieces to be able to play that early game that aren't too expensive, because if you're playing stuff that's too expensive, then you won't have enough left late game to kill your opponent. Because that's kind of what Kauyon does, is it kind of just pressures your opponent from turn 3 onwards and be like, you have to kill me before this, because if you don't, I am going to kill you. Kauyon doesn't have a killing problem on turns 3, 4, and 5, but it does in turns 1 and 2. So these guys kind of give you that early, like, oh, you put 2 OC on that point, cool, I can now put 2 OC on that point. Or vice versa, if you go first, you can scout them forward, put them onto a point, do your secure, do your actions, and also with a couple of Seekers and a Fusion, you can pop some light transports. I've definitely had Piranhas pop Rhinos and Immolators and stuff in that regard. Not consistently, but quite often. Especially if you have 2 or you have 1 and something else can shoot. Like a Ghost Kill maybe, that's like, well, you've measured it out so it can't get shot back because of the lone op, but it can shoot with its Ion Raker and just kind of maybe chip another 3 damage off. With that, a Piranha actually gets pretty consistent at killing stuff, which is pretty cool. Then we have 3 Riptides. In Kauyon, these guys are just absolutely nuts. They have an absolute crap load of shots, which is really good. Especially the more shots you have with sustained hits too, but obviously it kind of becomes exponentially good. Obviously, when you have like a hammerhead gunshot with a railgun, when you roll the 6, it's amazing, but you only have 1 shot, and it's only 3 turns you get to shoot it, so you don't actually have that many instances of being able to roll a 6. Whereas with the Riptide, you have 6 shots with the main gun, so you're effectively, if you're guided, you're getting on average 100% hits. So you're getting 6 hits with the ability to, if you roll a second 6, if you have reroll 1s from Shadow Sun or from Stealth Battlesuits, you can really, like, if you get 2 or 3 6s, it's exponentially insane. But then you also have 4 missile drone shots. You also have the smart missile system, which is another 3 shots. So you have all these ways of getting these little bit of extra shots that can really just like amplify your damage on turns 3 onwards. And also durable enough to stay alive until that point. Riptides are obnoxiously durable, being toughness 9 with 2 up save, 4 up invulnerable save, and 14 wounds. Really, really good breakpoints there. It's really tough to deal with, especially when they're getting cover. A Crutox Rider is just another great piece. This could also have been added to the previous slide where it's talking about the synergy units. 40 points for just an action monkey that's, again, OC2, really cheap, so you can really just discard it without caring that much. Really good at doing those like containment secondaries, all that stuff that you don't really want one of your big units to have to do. It's a great use for that. Really good piece to add. Then we have 2 Skyrays. I rate Skyrays in all detachments. They were originally in the synergies slide, and I swapped them out for hammerheads because hammerheads are actually in every list, I think. Maybe I don't think they're in Retaliation Cadre, but Skyrays I think are just phenomenal. They are more consistent damage output over the course of a game than a hammerhead with ion or rail, but they don't have the same alpha strike. The railgun and double seeker is obviously better than a Skyray's just 3 seeker shots. The seeker shots do have twin link, which makes them incredibly consistent even into harder targets, and with the amount of fly vehicles at the moment, the reroll hits makes them very consistent and not necessarily needing to be guided as often. They're also great to work in pairs with the coordinated to engage stratagem to give them both effects of the Kauyon ability, so you can really kind of hammer them down quite well. They're great to guide with because they have a marker light, but they're also just good because they have a decent amount of damage, and they're still a decent vehicle hull that's difficult to deal with. Then we have the hammerhead. Again, these work well all together. Railgun, just to kind of give that threat, and also gives you that tool in those games where I'm like, well, I really need to be able to kill armor, because Riptides are good at killing stuff that's toughness 8 and below really well, but when you get to that toughness 9 and above, they can struggle at times. So having this access to a really high strength 20 gun, and then the seeker missiles from all of them, can be a really good way of kind of chipping away at those bigger threats, so like your Imperial Knights, your Monoliths, your Land Raiders, all that kind of stuff. This is what you want to be getting into that. You don't really want Riptides to get into it as much because you're trying to roll 5s to wound, so not as consistent there. We have the Ghost Keel, amazing piece, especially in this. You want, like, lone ups in this detachment are just really, really good. I often played 2 Ghost Keels in my games when I was playing Kauyon, just because forcing your opponent to come at you early is kind of what you have to do anyway, but at least you're forcing them to overcommit, so then you can kill stuff early because they're coming at you, which means you can probably shoot them back from relative safety, especially if you position your Ghost Kills in a clever place. But one is, if you're a great player, which the person that played this list at LVO must have been, probably one of the best tower players in at the event, if not the best tower player at the event, you can probably utilize one and get to the same result. I had the redundancy of the second one. Devilfish, again, great piece, and then 1 unit of Vespids. Really good solid list here. You can see how all the pieces work together. You have Shadow Sun running with the Riptides early game, also giving rerolls to the Skyray if you're not playing against units that have fly. Really good kind of castle concept. But you can also, all pieces work well separate as well. As long as they can get guided, they really don't mind not having the Shadow Sun around or not, but Shadow Sun does amplify them a decent amount, especially if they're not being guided by stealth suits. So that is Kauyon. I'm trying to like not brush past these, but not dwell too long in each detachment, and kind of just give you an overview of what the kind of detachment does, how you can kind of play it a little bit. So definitely want to play slow. You want to be sending as minimal resources early. You definitely need to be screening out. You need to stop your opponents from just rushing you down. So you might have to sacrifice your Pathfinders or your Breaches, definitely your Piranhas, and just kind of move block your opponent or screen them out so they can't come at you until turns 3 onwards, because that way you can actually just kill everything that you can see. It's amazing how much damage this army does on turn 3 onwards. And yes, so that's kind of how you play it, and then it's kind of the overview of what strats are good. Next we have the opposite. We have Montka, the Killing Blow. This is effectively the complete opposite of Kauyon. You want to be playing the game as early as possible. You get a benefit, you get assault and lethal hits if you're guided on turns 1, 2, and 3. So this is really push to get as much damage in early and kind of cripple your opponent with like crippling damage, which Tau definitely can do. Tau have the damage, it's just the durability can be an issue sometimes, and kind of getting there, because you have to get guided as well to get a lot of the buffs, like getting +1 to hit, +1 to hit effective, or +1 ballistic skill, even better than +1 to hit, and ignores cover pretty much every time, are incredible abilities, but you need that second unit to be able to do it. So yeah, so that's kind of Montka in a nutshell, is they want to be aggressive. Pardon me. Some of the good strats that they have access to, they have a strat for pick 2 units. They can only target the same enemy unit, but they both get +1 AP. Now this is really good on your AP1, AP2 weapons. Pumping them up again means Armor of Contempt aren't as impactful, especially because Armor of Contempt only works on 1 activation now. The other one will be hitting even harder, which is just a really good way of kind of balancing that out, kind of really hitting hard. This is good on double breacher teams. It's good on Fire Knife with missile pods. So there's a lot of good units here that can really benefit from the extra AP from that. The auto advance 6 strat is incredible, especially on stuff like broadsides, which aren't very fast, or even on like a Riptide or a Ghost Kill to really get that angle to be able to guide or shoot as well. Really, really cool stuff you can do there. Then there's other like utility stratagems that are really good, like -1 damage in shooting. Can be really good in the shooting matchups if they're shooting with a lot of damage too. Just effectively halving the damage down to 1 can keep your stuff alive. That one is a bit more pricey at 2 CP, but it's still very valuable when it comes up. So yeah, let's get onto the list then. So this list, I think top 3 at an event. I think it was undefeated, but it sadly only got top 3 because there must have been multiple undefeated. And let's go into it. So we have Commander Farsight. This is a very suit-heavy Montka build, which I think is actually probably the correct way to go. Is the suit units are cheap enough that they're expendable, they're fast with it, having assault on everything, and they can hit really, really hard, especially with the extra AP and the other abilities with lethal hits and stuff like that. So we have Commander Farsight. We have a Cold Star with 4 Flamers and 2 Gun Drones, which might seem kind of odd to start with. Like, well, the commander has good ballistic skill, why would you not give him all the guns? And the reason is because you give him coordinated exploitation, and he goes with a Star Scythe unit with Flamers. Coordinated exploitation gives whatever they guide for sustained hits. So with having all Flamers, they don't need to be guided themselves, so they can always guide for your opponent, for another one of your units, and give them additional damage whilst they're still working at max efficiency themselves. Now, I probably would have a Cyclone Missile Launcher, a Cyclic Iron Blaster, sorry, or a high output burst cannon here, just to give them, like, he does hit on 3s natively anyway, so like you're not losing much by having that extra gun, and gives you like a little extra range and a couple of extra nice little pieces there. But really, I can't comment anymore. It's still very good. It's a lot of Flamers. It's like 10 Flamers shooting at your opponent. It's still brutal, especially when you can advance and shoot and get some really good angles. They move a bit faster because of the Cold Star. It's really good like piece to get that angle. Make sure your other units are hitting its maximum efficiency. Like, it's really nice being able to guide your Sunforge unit here, which could definitely have like a Farsight attached to it. So you're getting +1 to wound and you're getting sustained hits, so every 6 you're getting that additional hit in. Really, really powerful ability, like combo there. Next we have a Commander and Enforcer with 4 missile pods. This goes with the missile pod Fire Knife Battlesuit team. Really good combo here, like really good setup there with having the access to the extra AP, just being able to stay at 24-inch range and hit things pretty hard. It's a lot of damage 2 attacks. Damage 2 is pretty decent in the meta. There isn't that much -1 damage at the moment. It's kind of more just pushing more units at your opponent at the moment. So having that extra damage with the ability to get the extra AP can be really, really potent. Next we have a Kroot Warshaper. This one I questioned a little bit. It has Strike Swiftly enhancement, so he picks 2 units at the start of the battle, and they get they get Scout, Scout 6, so you can really pressure if you're going first, or you can deploy a bit more aggressive and move stuff back if you don't go first. There's actually some really interesting things that if you're playing Montka that you should practice, and that is deploying units that can utilize the Scout move if you're going first, and other units that can utilize it if you're going second. So don't just put 2 things in the open that have to use the Scout if you're going second. You can kind of have it in a way that you can really pressure going first by maybe scouting 1 unit really aggressively and then putting another thing into the open, so then because obviously you're going first, you get to move forward instead of just always having 2 things in the front that you always have to move back if you don't go first. It's kind of a way of utilizing it and getting a bit more mileage out of it, but you have to practice your deployment for that. So set up a table, jump on TTS, and just spend an hour or so just kind of deciding on, cycle through maps, deciding on where you can put things to get most mileage out of them if they go first or second. Some matchups you might want to be a bit more aggressive, so you having those extra units in front might be worthwhile, but I think just playing with it a bit more and not just thinking, well, I can put 2 units in the open because they can just scout to safety, is probably not the actual correct play a lot of the time. But yeah, really, really good piece there. Also just a nice little action monkey that can sit on your home field objective. No Kroot Carnivores in this list though, which is why I'm kind of surprised. Like, the Warshaper doesn't necessarily need to go with them anyway, but with all the indirect in the game right now, he is going to die like absolutely nothing to a 1 mortar team, a Desolation Marine squad, SMS from other Tau. There's a lot of different things, the top hats from Chaos Knights. There's so many things that just kill him really quickly. So not having a unit for him or having another unit that can sticky in this is, I think, definitely something that I would look at adding myself. We then have 2 Breacher units. Good. That is good. Lots of shots. Getting lethals here really makes them be able to punch up into tougher units because they can get the rerolls from a stratagem if they disembark from a Devilfish. And then getting the lethals really pushes through maximum damage you possibly can into units. And especially getting that extra AP. They absolutely love it. AP2 ignores cover is an absolutely amazing place to be with 20 shots. I do agree that you probably shouldn't be taking the Cadre Fireblades in Tau at the moment. They do add that, obviously, the extra 10 shots to the unit, which is great. But I think you just want more things at the moment, and more things that have multiple damage. So Fire Knife units, which the damage 2, or really anything that's damage 2 or above is really what you want to be adding into it, instead of that extra 10 shots of damage 1 into your breach teams. It also makes them more expensive, so you have to trade them into bigger units. There's a lot of that kind of questions that come in there. Okay, sweet. Next we have the Sunforge unit, which I'm assuming Farsight will go with. He is great to rapid ingress this piece, because he can rapid ingress for free, because Farsight gives 1 free strat per round. So he can rapid ingress, and then he can auto advance if you need for free on your turn, especially if depending on the cycles. Rapid ingress at your opponent's turn, then it's your turn, yeah, if that works. And then you can get within that melter range, potentially have the coordinated exploitation for the sustained hits, and then the Sunforge can really punch hard, like strength 9 plus 1 to wound, lethals and sustained. That's a scary unit to deal with. Yeah, so really cool nice little combo there. Then we have the Fire Knife, which goes with the Enforcer. Just a lot of good quality shots. I played against a player the other day who was playing 2 of these, and that is really good. Really good value. Pretty cheap as well for the entire thing. It's like 220 points, I think, for just that. And it's just, it hits really hard, and it's really good at the moment. Then we have a Star Scythe unit to go with that Flamer one we said. We have the AP1 that this gives the unit really punches up into non-monster and vehicles. So you can really like hit that stuff. They don't need to be guided. They ignores cover natively, and they're AP1. Can be go AP2 again if you need to. They just really good utility piece. The Star Scythe are really not to be slept on. Yeah, just really, really good. Then we have Ghost Kill. Again, exact same principles in all the other ones. Can be a bit faster in this detachment. Also forces your opponent to come at you a bit more. Again, really, really good because you want the game to be as fast as possible in Montka because you don't have an army roll on turns 4 and 5. So it's kind of that bit of contention with Kauyon. Is like, Kauyon, you want to slow down the game. This one, you kind of want to speed up the game as much as possible. 2 hammerheads with railguns. I did check myself to make sure that they were railguns, and they were in the list. So that was really, really interesting to have the raw damage out of those instead of the ions. The ion cannons with the lethal hits, if they're guided, on average do about the same damage as a railgun into tanks, but they also have the added ability to be good into other things as well, right? Because a railgun isn't really good into a unit of 6 Blade Guard or a unit of Deathwing Knights, but the ion cannon is good into both of those targets because getting damage 2 through on the Deathwing Knights or damage 3 is a really good premium at the moment. So I'm surprised he hasn't taken those, but again, must have been a meta call. If you have a bit more tanks, or if you're really worried about the knight matchups or the vehicle heavy matchups, the railguns are definitely better in that scenario because you can swing up so much more. Then we have a bit of spice. We have 2 units of 2 piranhas. These guys are awesome. I like a 1 and a 3 if I was going to do it, but they're pretty swingy is the only thing. 2 of them can be, is definitely more consistent than 1. When it's guided, they definitely kill like a transport or something like that if you shoot the entire payload with 4 Seekers and the Fusion Blasters. But then you're kind of sending away 120 points turn 1. I really like the singular because there's the stratagem to, if your opponent kills a unit, that unit that kills them gets everything in your army gets reroll hits against that, which is such a good ability. Such an absolutely amazing ability. So having a 1 to be able to send off and do that, turn 1, and then you have the 3-man to go out and just really be able to hit hard. Again, without rerolls and without getting... it has to be guided to 2 and 3-mans. So it's kind of awkward turn 1 because often you won't have other things to be able to help guide for them. Which, yeah, just makes it really, really tough. Really, really tough. Then we have 2 Devilfish for the 2 units of breaches. Totally makes sense. The rapid debarkation stratagem to give them the breaches rerolls when they drop out of the Devilfish can be absolutely brutal. Yeah, really, really, really good stuff there. This list also has, I believe, 3 units of stealth teams, but they just didn't fit on the slide, so I kind of just left them off. So apologies for that. I wanted to make sure you could see all the war gear on all the guys. So yeah, so there is 3 units of stealth teams as well, just to help guide, because otherwise this has really, really poor guide. Which is always the balance you have to do in Tau games, is you have to make sure you have enough guiding units, like units to guide with. Like, you want everything to be guided, but you need the units to guide for you, or spotting units. So that kind of helps with that. I definitely would look at changing a little bit. I'd probably drop a Piranha, maybe even 2, and get a unit of Kroot Carnivores. Sticky is just such a good value piece all throughout a game. And I would also look at maybe an Ethereal to get extra CP, because this list is super CP hungry. Or even like try and drop some more points, and I don't know how, because everything else I want in the list, to get a unit of Pathfinders to get those extra guides as well. Because it's just really, really important to be able to hit as hard as you can, as fast as you can in this detachment. So like the Pathfinder's double guide can be really, really important there. But yeah, that's kind of Montka. You want to be playing the game fast. Usually turn 1, you'll send forward a Piranha or 2, get your opponent to kill it, hopefully with a unit that you want to be able to kill the next turn, and then you want and stage everything up then, and then the next turn is like your killing blow. Turns 2 and 3 is where you usually do most of your damage in these kind of style lists. And yeah, it's kind of it, and then you're just playing a normal game of 40k. you want to be crippling your opponent's turn by the end of turn 3 realistically, because turns 4 and 5 you want to be cleaning up the dregs. You don't want to be fighting at both at the same level, because you are weaker at that point. Another good addition in these kind of lists, we should have to probably look at dropping either the Fire Knife unit with the Commander or the Sunforge unit in Farsight, is getting broadsides. Broadsides with the Scout ability from Strike Swiftly and the auto advance strat can be really, really powerful in this detachment. So I think that's something you could definitely look at changing if you don't have this specific list. If you're low on Sunforge, if you're low on Hammerhead, stuff like that, you could look at adding broadsides instead. I generally think that's quite an interesting way to go as well. On to the next, we have Retaliation Cadre, or Ret Cadre, or Ret Cad as it's often called. This one took a bit of a hit in the most recent data slate with the 6-inch deep strike change. So they used to have a stratagem for 2 CP to deep strike within 3 inches, which was amazing because it means you could get your Sunforges into melter range, and got your army wide ability to proc on those units. Really, really powerful ability. So now it's a 6-inch deep strike, still 2 CP, which is pretty pricey for a 2 CP 6-inch drop. They did alter the Retaliation Cadre ability, which is if you're within 12 inches, you get strength, and now within 9 inches, you get +1 AP on all your guns. So it really wants you to be close to your opponent. The 6-inch deep strike does hinder them substantially. Still not being able to get within melter range on your drop turn is quite brutal, so you really are relying on rapid ingressing and kind of movement shenanigans to get in within those ranges now. So it's definitely a bit more staged than it was earlier, and a bit more obvious where you're going to hit and when you're going to hit, which is a bit tough, but you can definitely get around it. The Fire and Fade stratagem, which is after you shoot you can make a normal move, absolutely amazing. Just being able to move out, shoot something, and then hide again. Play that uninteractive game. Really, really strong. Retaliation Cadre doesn't have a turn limit on how or when your army is going to stop functioning or start functioning, like Kauyon or Montka. So you kind of can play a slower game until you want to hit really, really hard. So that's like a really nice change of pace in this one, is you can choose the pace of the game. You don't have to play early if you're Montka or late if you're Kauyon. You get to kind of pick. Really, really cool stuff. They have some really good other stratagems as well. I think it's Arakan protocols to get sustained hits if you shoot at a unit of 5 or more, or sustained hits 2 if you're shooting a unit 10 or more. The list that I might as well go to now, this one is absolutely definitely uses that ability, because it has 2 units of star size with burst cannons. With one of them has Commander with burst cannons as well. So absolute carnage amount of shots that you can just put with sustain hits 2, give them the guide from the stealth suits and the rerolling ones. You can just get an absurd amount of shots into those big units. But yeah, so that's kind of the base of Retaliation Cadre. Let's get into the list. So we have Commander Farsight again. Definitely we want Farsight in this detachment, being able to make all those strats cheaper. Him even just being able to send a unit out, shoot, and then fire and fade is just absolutely amazing. Doing it for free is just crazy. Even doing the deep strike, discounting it by 1, so it's 1 CP instead of 2, just for CP management, can be really, really powerful stuff. So Farsight, really good. Also adding that tiny bit of melee can be really useful, just to finish off those units. It's really nice. Then we have Cold Star Commander with 4 Fusion Blasters. Totally makes sense. We have 3 Enforcer Commanders. 1 with 4 Burst Cannons, 1 with 4 Fusion, and 1 with 4 Plasma Rifles. The 1 with 4 Fusion does have Starflare Ignition System. This is definitely the best enhancement you can put on a Enforcer and on anything in Retaliation Cadre, because it gives you the ability at the end of your opponent's turn to put them up into the sky and then deep strike them down on a later turn. This is amazing when you have a Sunforge unit, so you can start this unit on the board and one other Sunforge unit in reserve, maybe with Farsight. You deep strike on turn 2 down, kill a vehicle, fire and fade back, and then on turn 3, on the end of your opponent's turn 2, you put this unit up into the sky, and then on your turn 3, you deep strike them down within 6 inches, hit a bit harder, all this kind of stuff. Like really good combo systems. It was definitely better when you could deep strike within 3 inches, but it is still a good combo, and it can still really hurt. And the Fusion Blasters, yes, are very good into vehicles, but they're also, it's still 6 high AP shots that can just really hurt enemy infantry, so that heavy infantry, the Terminator kind of variants, that kind of stuff like that. Can still hit really hard into those. Then we have so the plasma one goes with there's a unit of, where are they? The ones down here, Fire Knife with plasma. So the commander with plasma goes with the plasma guys. The burst cannon one, I assume, will go with one of the Star Scythe with burst cannons. And yeah, really just good. Like the Enforcer ability to give always on armor contempt and ranged. It's just a really good ability to keep your units alive a little bit longer. We then have 2 Crew Carnivore units. I would maybe have 1 Crew Carnivore here and 1, sorry, it keeps coming up, 1 Vespered Stingwings, just to give it a bit more uppy downy, a bit more options to do secondaries with. But it's really up to you which way you want to go. Depending on if you value the sticky or the extra OC more, or if you value the uppy downy, the secondary play that the Vesperds give you. 3 units of Sunforge. Sorry, I only have 1 slide here, so I added the X3 here, just so you know. There's 3 units of Sunforge. Very good, really good at killing vehicles, decent into heavy infantry as well. Then we have 2 Star Scythe with max burst cannons. There's always the argument of should one of these be flamers, because then they can also be an extra guide target for one of your other units if you're having a really heavy go turn. The burst cannons do really still need to be guided, so 1 and 1, like 1 burst cannon, 1 flamer, really isn't a bad place to go either. So either way, I think they're really good. Definitely wanting to use the strat for sustained hits 1 or 2 on these as much as possible. Yeah, really, really cool. The plasma team, I really like the plasma Fire Knights. You're not getting very, very many shots with this unit, but the shots are high value, and there's so much 3 wound models at the moment, so many 3 wound models at the moment that you need to be able to punch through. You got Scorpex, you got Terminators, you got Blade Guard, you got Possessed, you got Chosen. There's so many different units that you want to have that profile available to you, that are kind of like, yes, it's not that many shots. It's 10 shots total with the commander attached to them, but like you're getting full hit rerolls most of the time, and you're winning most things on 3s or 2s, and it's high AP. Yeah, and damage 3. Absolutely amazing. I think really look at whether you need the missile pods if you're really lacking the damage 2, but the damage 3 breakpoint is really, really good. So I think one unit slots into a lot of tower lists. I've even looked into them in Kauyon, because getting sustained hits on them can be really, really powerful. They're a bit faster than other units as well, so they can be really interesting there as well. And we have 2 Fire Knife teams with missile pods, just really good rerolls. Farsight and the vehicle matchups can go with the Sunforge, otherwise can go with the missile pod units. Gives them a bit more consistency. That extra +1 to wound with a 9 can be really nice as well. And yeah, just really good efficient units, really good at hitting your opponent, getting that extra AP. Yes, it's within 9 inches now, so you can get a little bit closer. You have to get, like, it's a little bit further away than it was before, but like it's still, like, getting that AP2 can be really, really nice. And these units, the same as the reasons why in Montka. 3 units of stealth suits, absolutely amazing, makes total sense. They also get all the buffs because they are battle suits. And then 1 broadside unit. I really like the broadside unit in Retaliation Cadre. It forces your opponent to play a bit differently. If you don't have this and you just have the Sunforge, your opponent can kind of just shove everything forward and like kind of pressure you a little bit, especially if they're on reserve early. If you have like 2 in reserve and the staff leader on the board, your opponent can be like, well, you can't do anything on your turn 1 if they go first, and they just rush everything forward, and they can get really ahead on points early, which you don't really want to give your opponent the option to do in Retaliation Cadre. So having this unit kind of stops them from doing that wholesale, because it's like, well, if you just send your vehicles forward, the 1 Sunforge unit that's on the board and this kill 2 vehicles, like, well, okay, that's actually hurting you enough, then plus all the other shooting to clear out some other stuff can really hinder your opponent from wanting to do that kind of play style. So really nice piece here. One thing is, again, with like the strike swiftly, practice deployment of these guys, because if you put them in the wrong place, they are so slow. It could be an interesting idea to keep them in reserve, really kind of decide on, look at the map that you're playing on, whether if they come in from reserves that they're going to have places that they can come in and impact the game, or even rapid ingress, and then be able to move on to a terrain piece and then fire off. But these things you need to know before the game begins, because if you're learning during the game, they're probably not going to get to do much that game, which can be really, really tough. So really plan your positioning of the broadsides, especially in this detachment, but even in Montka and stuff like that, where they have a bit more accessibility with the stratagem and the scout move at the beginning of the game. Really think of where these guys need to go. They don't really need the abilities from Retaliation Cadre, so they kind of work on their own really well. They don't mind them. The extra AP on the missiles and stuff like that can be really strong, but it's unlikely you're going to be getting within those ranges without your opponent running at you first. But yeah, really, really cool list. I really like how this kind of plays. It has like all the pieces to like piecemeal you apart over like 4 to 5 turns. It plays that kind of like trading game constantly, just like, okay. But it also, because of it has the fire and fade, you're playing the trading game, but you're going up 1 resource each time. So as long as your units are killing your opponents, you're really, really in a really good place with this kind of list. It's kind of obvious there, isn't it? But yes, like you play the trading game really, really well. The 2 crew kind of units give you the primary control that you kind of need in this kind of list. And then you have all the pieces to deal with infantry, to deal with vehicles, to deal with heavy infantry, to deal with Titanic stuff. Really cool list. So let's go on to our auxiliary cadre. Auxiliary cadre is a really interesting one. That it's obviously coming out in the Grotmus detachment. It has kind of the most interesting abilities out of all the detachments, whereas you get the additional AP if your auxiliary units are close to your enemy, and then you shoot them with your tower units, your greater good units. So a really good ability there, and then being able to give the Lone Op 18 to all your recruit units if they're wholly within your greater good units, your other tower units, your non-auxiliary units. Really cool like ability, really good way of molding the two together. The Recruit Hunting Pack being all recruit based is kind of a bit tough as a tough sell, whereas this one, like, cool, like it gives Vesper use, it gives Recruit Hounds a use, it gives Carnivals even more use, which they're already a great unit. So it kind of amplifies all these units that you already kind of wanted to take. Rampages are also really good in this with the couple of the strats. You get the reroll wounds and a couple of the other ones, the advance and charge. For all these kind of utility strats, so it's a bit more of a toolbox list. And similarly to Retaliation Cadre, it doesn't play on a certain amount of turns. It doesn't play turns 1, 2, and 3 and then kind of fall off, or 3, 4, and 5 like Kauyon, and then not have anything early to get pressured by. It can play that trading game with the access to the enhancement. I believe it's Admired Leader for pick an auxiliary unit, gives additional OC. So making Vesper OC2 to just deny your opponent's primary constantly. Amazing. Making your Carnivores OC3 just absolutely nuts. All this kind of stuff can be really powerful to control the tempo of the game. And then with the damage strat that gives +2 strength. So you're getting +1 AP and +2 strength on your Riptides, all sorts of different things on your different crisis variants. Can be really incredible to punch through, and can often be +2 strength can often be on those higher strength weapons +2 to wound effectively, which is just absolutely nutty when you think about it. But yeah, really love how this detachment controls the pace of the game, plays into a lot of Tau strength as well. You want the lone ops, you want to have to kind of force your opponent at you a little bit, because you want to be kind of playing in the midfield a lot with this detachment. So being able to force your opponent at you a little bit because of the lone ops shenanigans you can do and all sorts of different things, kind of plays into how Tau want to play. They want to be able to hold their angles and shoot you off the midboard, not have to go to the midboard and shoot you off their own objectives. So let's go on to the list here. This is another really well-placing list from LVO. I think it was Donald Plummer. I think he's quite a well-known Tau player in the American scene. Really, really cool list here. I think he was on Advanced Tau Tactics, I think is the channel's name. Really good content there on Tau content specifically. He kind of goes over a bunch of the different lists. He goes over Donald Plummer's list and a bunch of others, and talks about what makes them tick. Really good stuff there. So if you want more Tau content, go and check his stuff out. It's really, really cool. So this list, we have Commander Shadow Sun, really makes sense. Lone Ops are really good, being able to lone op yourself and then give lone op 18 to the Kroot and auxiliary units in the detachment. Really good kind of combo there. Also getting the rerolls, just really nice. The CP refund can be really vital. So many good strats in this detachment that you want to be able to use. So getting that extra ability to CP. You also have an ethereal to give the CP back on a 4 or get a CP on a 4 up. But if that doesn't work, then you have another chance on a 5 up. Really cool kind of like combo you can do there to try and guarantee those extra CP without having to discard cards, because this army has a really good ability to score maximum secondaries pretty much every turn. Even the kill secondaries can be pretty easy on turns 2 and 3 onwards. Turns 1, the kill secondaries always kind of suck though. But it's kind of what it is. So next we have a Firesight team with Admired Leader. Yep, I did get that right. So he, again, another lone op. Same principle as Shadow Sun. But picks a unit within 12 and they get +1 OC. 12 or 6, they get +1 OC. So just string a model back within that range so that they can get it. And then you just kind of have to plan that every turn that you can kind of give units a little bit extra OC. Really amazing on the rampages in this list. Making them OC 3 each is a really good breakpoint. Same with the carnivores. Getting the Kroot Hounds to OC 1 when you need it can be really good. 5 Kroot Hounds for 40 points is just an absolute steal. So being able to get them OC 1 to deny your opponent's objectives, or you can be quite cheeky and have no OC, put them on a point, and your opponent's like, well, they don't have any OC. But then you have the Farsight team within range to give them OC in your command phase, so then you can control primary. Really cool ways you can play around with quite a few of these units. Also just giving Vespid additional OC is just an absurd ability. Ethereal, as I said, a Commander in Cold Star, which is kind of a cool piece here, which has a Cyclic Ion Blaster, High Output Burst Cannon, and 2 Missile Pods. And he goes with a Fine Earth team with Missile Pods as well. Really good combo here. Again, the additional AP, getting that AP2 ignores cover, really strong. Being able to get them to strength 9 can mean they can actually deal with a lot of the toughness 8 vehicles, like Nemesis Dreadknights, Rhinos, stuff like those early transports. This unit can actually pick up those as well now, because being able to get that additional going to AP2 ignores cover and strength 9 can be quite a nice little breakpoint to be able to kill those lighter vehicles really quite consistently. 1 Skyray. Just Skyrays are really good. I really rate them. I think they're best in 1s and 2s. I don't think you want the full complement of 3 of them. I think there's better vehicles there. I think the Hammerheads become better at that point. But 1 and 2, because they're a good guider, they have good consistent damage. There's so much fly in the meta right now to get those rerolls, and they can act independently themselves. Just really nice. 3 units of Vespid, again, kind of auto include in this list. There's so much auxiliary units that just become like kind of when you open up a auxiliary cadre list, it's like, oh, you have 3 of these, you have 2 of these, you have 2 of these. Whereas, well, it's like 3 units of Vespid, 2 units of carnivores, can potentially be 3 as well. 1 to 2 units of Kroot Hounds, and then 1 to 2 units of Kroot Rampages as well. I've seen people try and run 6-mans of the Rampages. I'm not the biggest fan of them. They do hit, obviously, a lot harder. You're not getting much more mortals. You often only get 3 mortals in when you are doing the mortals, because you have to be within engagement range to proc the mortals on a 4-up when they make a charge move. So like you're not getting that, but you are getting the extra damage and melee, which can be really nice at the same time. But with the mortals, it can be quite awkward, as your opponent can pull models and units so that you actually can't base with a lot more, which can make it quite awkward to use the 6-mans. So a couple of 3-mans, just skirmishes, get that extra OC, flip the primary, kill those jumping intercessors and those kind of style units. Can be really strong here. Be careful though when you're using these guys, because obviously your opponent can play around the mortals as well, because you can't not do the mortals when you charge. So if your opponent strings out 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches in a line, and you have to hit one edge of it with your rampages, try and make it that only one rampager gets within range, so you can only do D3 mortals, so then you're guaranteed being able to pile in and still fight the unit. Because often if you're doing 2D3 mortals or 3D3 mortals, potentially, and you kill the 2 models, you probably won't be within range to get into combat with them. Yes, you get to kill 2 models, but then you're probably losing your rampages. So just be careful about how your opponent can play around them as well, and think about yourself how you can play around those kind of abilities. But yeah, really cool units. I really like them. Rapid Ingressing 1, keeping one on the board, really, really fun. Really cool to use. Having Tau with a melee element, just absolutely amazing. I've actually tried these out in a couple of different attachments, and because they're only 95 points, can be just quite good. Like, it's 6 OC for the unit of 3. They can challenge other units. They're a bit slow, which is a bit tough, but they hit pretty hard. They can also do some like nice portals into vehicles and stuff like that, just to try and ship them down a little bit. You get a vehicle low, cool, I'm just going to charge my rampages in and finish it off that way. Great way of dealing with transports with like shooting guys inside, because they can kill the transport in the charge/fight phase, and then tag the contents that gets out, so then they can't really do anything on their turn. Really nice little piece there. Really like them. Crew Carnivores, we've said before, really, really good. Even better in this detachment. Pathfinder unit with the iron rifles and a recon drone gives you that scout unit to kind of block off your opponent, because you don't want them to be able to kill all your auxiliary units, your Vespids, your Crew Carnivores, your Crew Hounds. You don't want them to be able to kill those early or tag your vehicles. So you need the scout, the infiltrate there to block your opponent's infiltrators from being too scary, and then the scout back is just really nice to be able to keep them a bit more safe after the fact. We then have 2 Ion Hammerheads. Ion Hammerheads here are just really nice. Getting the extra AP, really, really nice. Being able to go from strength 8, I believe, to strength 10. Again, you're wounding strength toughness 9 things from 5s down to 3s. Awesome breakpoint there. There's a lot of toughness 9 stuff in the meta. There's little transports, lots of stuff like that. That you're just like, you're giving yourself +1 to +2 to wound by using that stratagem. Really, really nice piece there. So much 3 wound models, as I've alluded to earlier. So the 3 damage from the ions really, really push a good breakpoint there as well. Unit of broadsides don't really need the extra AP from the list, but just a good piece. They're still very, very strong. If you're going the double ion hammerheads, having a broadside unit to be able to hit the heavier armor a bit more consistently can be really nice. And it also stops the Chaos Knight and the heavy vehicle armies from really just trying to pressure you early, because you have these extra pieces that can really hurt them back as well. Then we have the Fire Knife team that goes with the Cold Style. We've already talked about that. And then a Ghost Kill. Absolutely delightful. Yeah, so Ghost Kill, again, another low op, similar to the Farsight team and Commander Shadowstone, gives those easier extra low opping to the other things that you want to low op, the auxiliaries. Good piece. Forces like your opponent to do weird things on objectives, especially if you can put other stuff around it to heroic and stuff onto the objective if they have to charge the Ghost Kill. There's lots of fun little plays you can do with that, especially in this detachment. There's also, again, 3 units of stealth teams in this detachment as well. Again, it didn't fit on the slide, apologies, but it is something that's kind of in every single list. So I was like, if I'm going to leave something off, it should probably be them. So there is 3 units of stealth teams as well. Sorry, I'm still getting kind of used to where the camera is, and this, like, yeah. Yeah, so there's 3 of those. And yeah, it's a really cool list. I think Auxiliary Cadre is the most interesting way to play Tau at the moment. Is it the strongest? I actually probably think Kauyon is equal, if not slightly better, because of the raw damage that they can do late game. If you can play turns 1 and 2 well, that your opponent can't do anything and can't pressure you, if you can block off so like Creations of Bile and World Eaters and stuff like that and stop them from getting to you early, you just kill that army on the clapback on turn 3. Like, if you can see the 2 units possessing the unit chosen on turn 3, obviously it's difficult to get to that point, but if you can, and you can do it consistently enough, you win that game. Like, I think, whereas this list, it has the screening pieces, but it doesn't have the raw damage to push through the Creations of Bile and World Eaters kind of style lists. It's probably slightly better into the vehicle list, because you have the hammerheads that can go to get extra strength. You have the broadsides and the Skyray. Even Shadow Sun can be quite good. And you have also all the extra OC pieces. You can get the Vesper to OC 10, so they can flip an objective over a Chaos Knight, for its OC 8. All those kind of pieces. Probably better in those matchups specifically. But I don't think Kauyon has a bad matchup there. I just think this has probably a better matchup. But yeah, so those are the lists. So my final thoughts on this are Tau are strong. They're not doing super well in the win-loss ratio kind of things, but I think Tau played well. So like your Kyle Grundys from like Pure Type Program, all those kind of players, Glenissa, that was the first list we talked about today. A really strong. A good pilot will always do really well with Tau. Tau is never going to be an army that you can just pick up and play and be like instantly very good with. They're not Ultramarines, Space Marines at the moment. If you're taking Marnius and Marnius Calgar and Robert Gilliman, those kind of armies can be a bit more easier to play because they're so forgiving. Tau aren't forgiving. You have to plan so much about your turn. You have to plan everything from your deployment to where you're going to guide with, what's the tempo of the game going to be, all this kind of stuff. No matter what detachment you're playing, you have to plan very well in advance what you're going to do. I would definitely recommend, if you're playing Tau, to practice deployment more often than you think. Like, I often will sit down for a couple of hours on TTS, going through different deployment types, different map packs, and deciding and figuring out where is actually the optimal thing to deploy against. An aggressive army, a vehicle-based army, a passive army, an indirect army, and kind of figuring out all those kind of things, because it can also change your list a little bit. It's like, well, actually, this is an issue that I can't solve through deployment. I actually need to change my list or alter it slightly so I can figure this stuff out. Obviously, playing games is also really good, but you really need to have that plan set quite solidly at the planning stage before you even go into the game, and then adapt it to your opponent. And another thing is you can't overcommit, right? Like if you overcommit with Tau, you just get you don't have enough pieces in the later games. You're Kauyon. Overcommitting with Montka is probably okay because you kind of have to with Montka a little bit more. You need to be that bit more of the aggressor, but you still don't want to oversend. You need to know your damage profiles so well that you know, like, oh, this is exactly what I need to send off to kill this. Because if you send one more resource, that's usually 2 more resources, because you need the extra additional damage resource and the extra guide resource as well. So like, it's often, if you overcommit, you can get punished really heavily, really quickly. So just be mindful of that, and again, plan on how you're going to guide, how you want the tempo of the game to be. But the one thing that there is with Tau is there is the damage. Tau have an absolutely insane range damage output. No matter what detachment you're playing, whether it's Kauyon, Montka, Retcad, or Auxiliary Cadre, they have the guns to deal with it. It's just how you use them in your games. That is like the most important thing that you can really do here. So that's it for this video. I hope you really enjoyed. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about what not to do in your games and ways that you can get better at 40k, there will be a video here or here. I'm not sure exactly where yet, on one of these sides. Otherwise, really hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like, leave a subscribe, hit subscribe, put the notification bell on, which like no one does. And otherwise, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!